Grab it with your claw.
Grab
You've
it with
got
your claw.
something-
Don't try to shoot it.
The answer is always either shoot a thing or grab it with your claw.
Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Hey, I'm Nolan.
And this is episode 434. This is not in my notes, but I just thought of it as I was saying the intro again. No, I've been saying that intro, and we've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
9-ish, almost years.
We're a couple months away from our 9th year.
If we weren't a weekly podcast, but a daily podcast, we would have been going for over a year.
I see what you're saying.
A daily episode. It is well,
right.
Wait, we would have been going
way over
a year.
Yeah, like a year and a third.
Yeah. That also sounds terrible.
It's
daily.
a long time to spend every Saturday with you two talking about an old video game, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Same.
There it is.
The question of the week: what side character deserves their own game?
Nintendo made this question really hard because they've given side games to every single one of their characters except one. Maybe more. But my answer is Waluigi.
Oh no!
The fans have wanted that for a long time because like Wario has his, and Waluigi only gets included in like the sports games and Mario Party and like the ones in Mario Kart where you can like pick characters. They have like a bigger roster. He's never been the main character.
Primary.
And they could the potential there, the meme potential, if they just lean in hard with that, it would be a huge success.
Hey. Bad / not a bad answer.
Thank you.
Like I feel like that game would be cursed, but intentionally.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. It'd be fun.
Yeah, it would. My answer won't ever happen, and if it did today, we probably wouldn't like the outcome as much as we would have years ago. But the side character that I want to have a game completely crafted around, Deckard Cain.
Really?
Oh,
what would that? Would it be an ARPG?
Probably not. I don't know.
You want to play as an old man?
I haven't thought about it outside of the concept, but I'd want like maybe origin story.
Okay.
And it could be RPG instead of like ARPG. It could be kind of how he got wise. I don't know. It could be a lot of things.
How he got you to stay a while.
For the non-hardcore elite gamers, what game are we talking about?
Diablo.
Is he in 2 and 3 and 4?
He's in
Spoiler
2
alert.
and 3.
Yeah.
And 1.
Well, yes, of course.
That would be cursed as well, Kenny. Kane. The game could be called Kane.
No, Deckard.
You think Deckard?
Which isn't that the creator's name in Discord, at least? I believe that's what he uses as his Discord. I mean, we're friends with him.
You can't think of his name, though.
Yeah, you're right. I cannot, and I will not at this
Brevi.
point. David Brevik.
Yeah.
Shortened to Deckard. My answer is one that the both of you will agree with. And is the best answer out of this.
Can I preemptively disagree on principle?
You
Same.
can, but then you can't take it back.
Oh, okay. Then I will wait.
Okay. I won't say it either.
I think it would be fun and charming to have a video game centered around the one and only Steiner from Final Fantasy IX. I just think he's a lovable, fun character. You could do a few of those, but if there was one where he was leading his Knights of Pluto, I don't even know what kind of game it would necessarily be, but it'd be so much fun to play like either, an earlier version of Steiner before he got mixed up and all of that. I don't know.
I'll give it to you.
I love that character.
you could probably find better side characters, even from that same game, that would make a better game.
Kenny won't agree with you, Dustin, because remember, he didn't like that game, and we were mad at him for it. I'm just reminding you.
Excuse me.
I actually came across something recently. I don't know if he typed it to us or what, and I don't remember how I heard it, but that was my recollection, Nolan, but then I read something or heard something of what he said right after he finished it, and he actually did like it. He just
I know, we just wanted him to like gush about it.
I think he just didn't love the ending or something, or I don't remember, but he liked it more than we remember.
Yeah, we only heard the one criticism.
I said one negative thing at one point, and y'all got livid. Yeah, and didn't listen to anything else I said.
You don't do that to our game. Okay, now, we don't typically do this, but the three of us have to agree on which game would be best out of the three that we just pitched.
Would be best.
Yeah.
Okay, not yours.
Practically, the Waluigi game would.
So we're all just gonna say our own. We have to agree.
Wait, Kenny, you don't think yours?
Yeah, you don't.
That's ridiculous.
Absolutely, I do.
You think Deckard Cain would be a hit?
Wait, but you think Waluigi?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, because there's already been people asking for mine. No one's asking for a Cain.
I'm gonna go with Nolan.
I am.
Kenny.
I mean, it's 2 or 3. Like, y'all win.
Y'all?
Nobody votes for Deckard Cain.
All right, look, they're all good ideas. No. Nolan did win. Let's give Nolan a big hand. Like in our retro game of the week, Bionic Commando, Elite Forces.
Overview.
Bionic Commando, Elite Forces was developed by Nintendo Software Technology and published by Nintendo. It is the only game in the Capcom-owned series that was published by Nintendo. It was only released in Australia, only released in the States in 2000. And it was on the Game Boy Color, which is not a very common system for us on the podcast. We've only had a handful, if I remember correctly. But I certainly had experience with it growing up. I played it a lot, played Game Boy Color games a lot. Looking back, however, has been an extreme hit or an extreme miss kind of situation. And I'm trying to think of other examples. We played a Game Boy Color game that we were like blown away by, and I forgot the name of it.
I've got all of the Game Boy Color games in front of me that we played so far. Can y'all name a few?
Yeah. You ready?
Can you name any?
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Yeah. The Survival Kids.
Survival Kids was one of them.
Boom.
Yes.
That was Game Boy Color.
That y'all liked, and I thought it was okay.
I thought it was really innovative. Yeah, on the Game Boy Color it was
innovative for sure.
Yeah. But, the one I'm thinking of is like Samurai Kid, but it's not. It's
Samurai Kid,
and that was
the one that blew us away.
That's the not Metroidvania, not really. Dude. Yeah, it was so good.
Good.
Would this game have been better if it was Bionic Commando Kids?
Oh
wait, yeah, you have a good point
the
here.
Ones about kids.
Wait,
weird,
what?
Nolan.
I don't know
we
the
also
other ones.
You named 2 strong ones. That's great that those are in your mind.
I forgot the other.
That's why he'd remember them.
The majority of Game Boy Color games that we played have been hot trash.
Yeah.
So we played
that's what I'm saying.
Doug's Big Game. We played Rugrats,
Totally
Angelica. We played the Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Oh, yeah, really the card thing.
We played Hamtaro and Moomin's Tale, which is okay,
Moomin's
but
wasn't
not
bad.
So, either games are made about kids or for kids.
Yeah.
Those are your only 2 options on the Game Boy Color, apparently.
There were a lot of games like those bad ones on the Game Boy Color for sure. Like ports, like the Game Boy Color was hot for like console ports. Like if it was on PS2, if it was on like a home console, they put a port on the Game Boy Color and it was trash and was completely different than the other games.
So I didn't have a Game Boy Color. My experience so far on this podcast is that Game Boy Color is a worse Game Boy. There, in my experience, there's something about when you put color on a lot of these games without an expertise to it, it's making it uglier than the green screen that you got with the Game Boy.
No, I won't agree because you could still play. It was backwards compatible. You could still play Game Boy games on it, and the design of the Game Boy Color is better than the original brick Game Boy. They had so many colors.
Physical design.
Yeah, and they had when they started the translucent ones that like you could see the board, and I had one of those and it was sick.
He wants a colored Game Boy. He doesn't care about Game Boy Color.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
that's
exactly.
maybe that is it.
You also you mentioned that it was Nintendo, not Capcom.
Yeah.
Which how does this work?
I don't know.
When a company does another company's game, do they buy the rights, or does the origin company pay them to do it? How does this work?
My best guess in that situation, because it's two behemoths, it's Capcom and Nintendo, and they usually don't play nice, I don't think, would have been that Nintendo has the rights to this game and was outsourced by Capcom to make it. But they don't own the Bionic Commando name. Capcom does. That's my guess. I couldn't really find, the logistics of how that went down. Kenny, you probably know.
Kenny knows or can act
he
like
knows
he knows.
all.
Yeah, I'll pretend to know, but so here's what I know. There were lawyers involved, and because of that, I'm smart enough not to talk about it.
NDA.
All right.
You signed...
It's a good rule in life.
Right.
He signed an
Okay.
NDA.
That's
If
fair enough.
there's lawyers involved, don't talk about it.
This game is a sequel
It is a sequel to a
It
Game
is.
Boy game.
to a Game
To a
Boy
game
game.
That was a port of the,
Of the game that we
I was going
played.
to say to a game that we've played, but not really.
Yeah.
Sort of.
We played Bionic Commando on episode 92, so it's been a while.
Shucks.
And it is so Bionic Commando actually, and we probably talked about this in the original episode so many years ago, started in the arcade, and then it was ported to the NES or whatever. That's what we played.
yeah.
I didn't realize that, but that's cool.
I
mean,
want to
didn't
say it was
recall that.
under a
We've
different
talked about it.
name as well.
Ooh,
Maybe.
that
I might be
the case.
tripping. Like
just Commando.
Commando,
or
I
something?
think, yeah. Yeah, Commando.
Yeah, there's something there. And
It's a run and gun video game released by Capcom in the arcades in '85.
Okay. And so we've been in this world, and now we're returning to it, but on a handheld device, and a few years later.
Yes. And the story of Bionic Commando Elite Forces is this. Karania is our setting, and the Avars are wreaking havoc on Karania, and it is up to the Elite Forces to fight them back. The Elite Forces in this case are comprised of two people. Commander Joe is an ally of yours that has been captured or is vanished, and actually, I believe Commander Joe in this game is a nod to or is the character from Commando, the original game, and maybe even in Bionic Commando 1.
Super Joe, I think, is
Super
what
Joe.
he was called. Yeah.
Got
at
it.
the time.
Super Dave.
But yeah, it's probably him.
So your mission is to stop the Avars and also now rescue Commander Joe from by going through various levels and fighting off the enemy.
Gameplay.
Male or female?
Female. I didn't even
Female.
play him.
Same. So we were all ladies this week. That is your.
It felt like the obvious.
She's
choice
on the
here.
left.
I don't know why.
That means main character.
Yeah,
She's on the left.
Partly because I'm left, but partly because
Thighs.
of look of the character and
Oh yeah,
anything
that's what I'm
else.
saying, Kenny.
She felt like the obvious choice.
Yes.
This is
She's on the
insane.
left.
I mean, you picked her too.
Yeah,
so
what is-
obviously she was the
you're
obvious
guilty.
choice.
There's no obvious choice. It's you either pick boy or girl.
Bro, it's
and
obvious.
3 for 3 of us picked girl. It's obvious.
Why would you
Well,
pick boy when you could have played
My
boy
goodness,
in
I
Bionic
just
Commando?
thought I was stating something. I didn't know this was going to be a whole situation.
Go play one, dude.
If you want to play boy, go play 1. That's the first option that you're presented with. Are you going to play male or female? Which apparently plays differently. So they have different strengths, different abilities, different unique weapons. The female has a particle gun, and the male has an assault rifle. So they function the same in that you're shooting people with them. I guess their fire, maybe range and rate of fire differ a little bit. And
I would assume all the upgraded versions of weapons are the same, but I don't know.
I don't either. I didn't play them.
I don't know. Did you know, before we even talk about what you're doing in this game, that you can charge your weapon?
Yeah.
I didn't initially and for most of my playthrough, but I did figure that out later.
I didn't know it in the first play.
Oh, no, it took me a while, and I finally figured it out. I didn't use it much because it's much easier to just spam.
It's kind of better to spam in most cases because anyways, we'll get to that.
All right. So here's a setup of the game. You are you're a Bionic Commando, I guess, or an elite force going to. So my thought was that in Bionic Commando, you're the one guy that doesn't have an arm and instead has this claw arm or something like that. That's how I remembered it. But in this game, what?
Right, they're like, you want to be an elite force? Cool, chop it off.
Yeah, take your arm off.
Show us you're serious.
That's how you get in our club, dude. Kill yourself.
So I assume they have their no. I don't know if they've got their full arms.
I think both arms. In this case,
it's just an attachment in your mind.
An attachment.
Like it's not.
Well,
a replacement.
in my mind, it's more of a grapple gun.
Like it's a sleeve that like goes on.
I don't
and
know,
they
man.
control it.
They don't go too deep into this arm lore.
Well, no, but we care.
But you are using that bionic arm to maneuver through platforming stages, and a lot of them are. I mean, they are left to right, but verticality is a huge thing here because here's the big twist: there's no jump. This is a platformer with no jumping.
And there wasn't jumping in the first one either, and that's like the first thing you notice because it's a platformer. This game is, but without a jump, you've got to do something really smart in order to compensate for that, and thankfully they do.
Yeah, completely different movement mechanic, and you're Spider-Manning your way around instead of jumping.
So you are traversing an overworld map at first that is reminiscent of like Super Mario 3, where you've got different blocked stages that you're going to, and on that overworld you've got enemies, tanks in this game that are moving around, and so if you come across them, you go into a little mini game. But you're going to these different levels. They're just named like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in this game, and you don't have to necessarily go to all of them. But then when you go into the world, you're doing the platforming. You're finding these little communication rooms so that you can connect with your base. You can do some other things there, which we'll talk about. And then you're getting to the end of that stage and fighting some kind of boss.
Yep.
Rinse and repeat.
Which it's been a long time, we've said, but I believe that's kind of the same setup of the one that we played, the first one.
Yeah, it's pretty similar.
You had that overworld map there too, didn't you?
You did.
Yeah, with the moving caravans and stuff that you can interact. And
the communications room and the bosses, honestly, it's nearly
It's very
identical.
similar to the first game, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Which I think is a cool setup. The communication rooms are really interesting to me in particular because they serve as a couple things. A save room, which is unique to the Game Boy Color. In my mind, it is. It serves as kind of a tutorial because, at least early on, because the commander is telling you like, "Hey, try doing this," or like, "Use this button."
Teaches you vital information you need. Absolutely.
And it also serves as a kind of objective tip or hint room because you can hack into the enemy's comms and they'll tell you things about a room coming up or like something to also try. I think it's super clever and like simple. It's just a room you go in if you want to. You don't have to. It's optional.
Yeah. It's a vehicle for lore. You get a bunch of your story there.
Yeah.
It's a vehicle for unlocking some of your sort of specific optional kind of upgrade paths. They really use it as a pretty core mechanic in the game, and finding and having the correct decoder and getting a decoder and then going back to previous levels that gave you decoder access you didn't have access to so that you can get those messages. Like, all of that stuff ends up having a pretty big impact on how this game plays for you.
One of the other things that you can do in that room is select items. So at the beginning of each level, you choose your loadout. And at the beginning, you don't have any options. But as you get more items over time, then you have options of what kind of items you bring with you into the stage, even what kind of weapons you bring with you into the stage. You can change those in the communication room, which is super nice.
Like, you're like, oh, actually, I needed that.
Yeah.
Go get it.
You don't have to start the stage all over again. Just go to a communications room and switch out so that you have your green decoder instead of your red decoder, or whatever the case might be. But there are items that you get throughout the game. You can get like energy recovery pills, which is like, I think, a one-time use to replenish your health.
Full health refill, yep.
You've got the different decoders that are used for tapping doors or communication centers. And then you've got like armor, like helmet, boots. There's boots that you can do swinging damage into enemies, so
particle
you can grapple into them.
I love that they make that behind an upgrade, but that they include that option, because it's frustrating that you can't initially.
What are a few of the things that are different in this game from Bionic Commando? Because I know we all went back and listened to the episode this week.
Right, yeah. We all did that for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that's different is how the like truck interaction levels work.
Is that different?
It is.
Okay.
Those, if I recall, and I played a lot of the original games, so I believe I recall, you didn't have the top-down view during those challenge modes.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Again, I'm
don't
pulling
recall
that from memory, but I don't believe you do. So that's novel.
What you're doing in this game when you come across a tank is play the exact same top-down level, no matter which tank you come across.
There's a little bit of variety.
I don't know if there's... Okay.
It's still really cool, though. Like, dude, Game Boy Color, like, it functions great. I think that it's a nice variety on a console that didn't give you variety typically in a game.
Yeah, it
I
breaks
like
it up. Me too. I thought it was a nice little, just something different.
I liked two things about it. One, the end of each of these, you got an extra life, so that was nice. And then two, instead of just using your claw to move forward and for navigation purposes, or she like swings it around, and pushes back any of the enemies that are too close to you.
Sick.
So that was a little cool. Anything else that you can think of that was different or new?
I didn't listen to the episode, so I don't know.
I mean,
know.
you have the ability to save your game. That's a different function.
That's different. One thing that you did come across in the first play that was new to this one had to do with sniping.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'd forgotten that mechanic. That's great.
Dude, I was actually so impressed with the sniping thing.
Explain, what are you doing?
I wish they'd done it a little more.
Sure,
honestly.
Me
it's
too.
So fun.
So you will go through stages and then come across a crosshair that shows up on your screen, and you think you're getting shot, is what I thought. But what that means is you can interact with a sniping mechanic where you go into a sniping mode and your screen changes and zooms in or it shows you where you're looking. But then in the bottom corner of that screen, it's like your scope. It's like zoomed in, and you have to find the enemy and snipe them. And you have a certain amount of shots, so you don't want to miss. You really don't want to miss, because if you kill them all, you get a supply crate.
And a limited amount of time as well.
Well, yeah. You get a crate that slowly floats by you while you do nothing.
While you do nothing and think that it's going to land on the ground, and then slowly despair comes over you and you get really angry. But yeah, no, I thought that was so, again, tiny screen, console's is nothing to write home about, and they gave you this like cool little immersive mechanic. It's great. I didn't think that was in the first one, but I forgot to even mention it.
Yeah, I don't think that one's in the first one because
really
it
don't.
felt super, super new to me. And it was always a little fun mini game within the game to do.
Yeah.
You certainly don't have to do them, but it's fun. There's really no punishment to do it, and you get a supply crate that can heal you, or it can be an item, I guess, or whatever, give you more mana.
You want it, so don't let it fall past you. Just try to get it.
Grab it with your claw.
Grab
You've
it with
got
your claw.
something-
Don't try to
yeah.
shoot it.
The answer is always either shoot a thing or grab it with your claw.
Can we talk about the platforming? Because that's what's unique
Yes,
here, or
yes.
mainly unique here in this game. And where I think people will either, gravitate to it and learn it, or it will be something that kind of pushes them away from a game like this. Because although the stages are somewhat standard platforming stages, you've got platforms that you've got to get across. Without the ability to jump here, you are simply moving and then using your claw to swing or to climb up to different platforms. I think another new thing here, actually, from the original, is that you can go down.
Double tap down
platforms. So double tap down. I don't think that was an option
Was
there.
it
So they
not?
built it all around.
You may be right.
That'd be annoying.
And if so, that was a huge change.
Yeah,
to
which
include
is
that.
super necessary and super easy to include, and I'm glad that they did.
Here's what I'll say about the platforming aspect of it. At first, and this is coming from someone who played the first one and knew what to expect, at first it feels insanely restrictive. It doesn't feel great at first because you're like, man, I really, really wish I could jump, and I really can't swing. I don't have the swing timing down yet. But once you do get the hang of it, it feels incredible. And the first few stages, they're kind to you, the player, in that they don't get crazy in terms of, hey, very precise swinging sequence that you have to do. It's flat platforms that you can go up, take your time on, and figure out things. But later, thankfully, they develop the stages to be kind of the platforming aspect is the challenge of the stage, and it feels so good.
Yeah, they're super smart about it, and they're super smart about the way they incentivize you to learn to do that well, because you have that optional level fairly early on, which is the first time that hitting some of those swing, jump, grab moves is mandatory for getting past the level. The first time you're given a promotion opportunity. And that, because that is optional, but flexes your ability to have to learn that in a way that's a little bit less stress but high reward. They were just so kind about yes, you're going to take a little while to figure this out. Yeah, we realize this is something that is going to have a little bit more nuance, but we're going to be very smart about building our levels in a way that teach you to do that. And then later on, it's expected that you have to be able to swing and jump and then grab another platform itself while you're going and continue moving on, or you're going to really suffer in this game if you haven't mastered that mechanic. So I don't know. I think they were pretty smart about how they went about encouraging you to get better at this, and that goes a long way to being user-friendly with a mechanic that's so abnormal.
It does feel foreign though, especially at first, and it is something, but it is a mechanic that you can get really good at. I never got really good at it, but I did get where it was manageable, and I was no longer feeling punishing. And the thing that's nice, one of the things that's nice, is that you're not ultimately punished. So there aren't, I guess later on there are a few, but there aren't many places where you just die if you fall all the way down. It just means you got to climb all the way back up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, which again is that's smart design. Yeah. I would have liked to have more of those hazards, I think. And late game it kind of there are some
there's spikes and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. There are spikes which is important to dodge, but
even at one point there's the flamethrowers that are coming down from the ceiling where like if you choose
timing,
to swing
yeah.
across the ceiling, you got to like also time it well.
Yeah.
And so they did increase difficulty there and
yeah.
add some more challenges. I'm with Nolan. They could have leaned even harder into that if they'd wanted, if that was the focus. They did enough of it though, where you're swinging around and really having to see which things you can hit. And again, especially on those sort of challenge bonus like promotion levels, that it I think they struck the balance really well.
So part of, like, we're talking about the swinging and like how some of the areas are designed like that. Talking about the stage design, there are quite a few stages in this little game, more than I thought, like in the teens, and there's really great variety in the stages themselves. Dude, Area 7 straight up felt like Castlevania. It was the cave one where you're like underground.
Oh yeah, that one's well done.
Dude.
Yeah.
Like, because I was thinking, okay, this is fine. Like the first few stages look kind of similar. But I was like, this is fine. But dude, then they like start completely changing the look of it and the design of how those platforms are working. There's a like Egyptian stage later. The variety is insane. I didn't think they would go that direction with the actual stages themselves, but it ended up taking like kind of the forefront of the game for me was navigating through these well-designed stages, and less so on the combat. Like there's certainly combat, but in some areas they overwhelm you. But man, I was really impressed with the stage design.
It did shock me because from my recollection of the first one, you're basically in the same type of environments. So like you're either in like you're in like foresty type stuff, or like I
some
don't know,
kind of
you're,
cities,
like, very militaristic, right?
Yeah.
Is kind of like what you're doing. But here you're there. There's times where like you're outside in like a city. There's you mentioned the cave that was like a totally different environment and vibe. You've got the forest stuff for sure. The waterfalls. There's a stage with
waterfall.
like,
you've got that cool flamethrower level where
Yes.
things are on fire and you have to like run away from it before it reaches you. Ton of variety.
yeah, which is shocking for the handheld version of
Right.
this game, in my opinion. Like,
I agree.
If this was just a sequel on a home console, expected, probably not as shocking or surprising, but that it is a sequel on a handheld is what kind of shocks me with that. I do think that the not the design of the level, but the design of the platforming in the level was somewhat stale to me.
Really?
Yeah, because it always felt like I was basically doing the same thing, meaning going up and then over and then down and then over and then up and then over and done. It felt like that was and I know not every stage was that, but it felt like like I kind of just knew the map already rather than having to explore a little bit. It just felt like it limited me to what I was doing on any given level.
You've played too much Metroid. It wasn't.
That's not the same.
It wasn't. I don't know. That's fair.
That was my major complaint. Just felt like platforming, feeling like each level, although it was giving me a new visual and new things to interact with, or to see. I guess it's just visuals with the stage, with the waterfall, with the I know it's not just visuals, but the flamethrowers you're talking about, Kenny. But the setup of the level all felt relatively the same.
Yeah, I see what you mean by that. Just kind of like the linear path of it all, kind of. But
Yeah,
the obstacles they threw in your way helped break that up. It could have been worse.
And I felt like that is one of the limitations of the no jump coming through.
Yeah, definitely. Because
Sure, but there's things you can do here that you can't do in a game that it's just built around jumping. Like, it's different, but they account for that relatively well. I feel like they have grabbable items in all the right places. They have limitations on which things you can pull yourself through and which you can't, so that sometimes you do have to explore and kind of find your way up. Like, it's not like they implemented this and then sort of thoughtlessly just did the same thing over and over. I get it might feel a little bit repetitive, but that's like saying on a platformer, like I had to keep jumping to new platforms. Like that's the way it works. So I don't know.
When you're jumping, you've got a lot more flexibility on how you design the stages. When you're doing this, it's some limitations that it causes them to have to get creative. And I think that they did, but I mean, look, I'm not dying on this hill. I'm just saying that I think that it was a little redundant. Up, down, over.
Interesting. I didn't find that piece redundant. The thing that I did find a little bit redundant, and not completely, it wasn't totally uninspired, and they did try to have some variety here, but was boss fights.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's talk bosses.
They felt a little too, because you're in that similar room most of the time.
Well, you're fighting some of the same things, like
but some of the bosses
of them are very similar to each
aren't
other.
Bosses. Like,
what do you mean by that?
Well, some of them aren't. You're not killing a computer or someone. You're escaping, or you're shooting a door open in one of them. It's not always killing like one big dude.
Yeah, I didn't mind that your sort of final challenge sometimes was blowing up a reactor and sometimes was blowing up the door while you have to fight certain waves. That was nice variety. But when they did give you a boss itself, I don't know. They changed them. They had different guns and different movesets, but they did feel very
samey,
similar. Yeah, some games just do like the big overwhelming bosses, or the bosses have completely different move patterns, or you have to learn to. You just had to be a better warrior than these guys by running away from their bullets sometimes.
Yeah,
which is an interesting choice.
I would say overall a little uninspired, but I don't know if that's even like, it's fine that they're in the game, but it's certainly not even the focus of the game. Like,
no, and I think they were trying to make the enemies feel like you know, like other people that were elite and stronger than your normal guys. Yeah. But like super, without it being, you know, this whole thing. I actually was kind of expecting they were going to take this game a slightly different direction, and they could have done a sequel on this game if they'd wanted and taken the story there. I thought we were at some point going to start fighting some of the aliens that had created the original like technology that they're unearthing.
I mean, you do,
and that could have been cool and given you some really cool boss opportunities.
What are those Velociraptor type things?
Aliens.
Those felt alien.
Yeah,
maybe they are. Maybe the implication is, and I think seeing some of those is why I was like, oh, there's more going on here, and I wanted that to like go somewhere, and it never really did.
Yeah,
so.
Even if it like, and I don't know, maybe it did, but even if at the very end it sets that up where they've arrived.
It doesn't. You save everybody, and then
you get ported, and you and Commander Joe have to in the next game probed. No,
they make you and Commander Joe
save the Earth again, but without Albatross.
Yeah,
on your side. Yeah.
Aged.
Game Boy Color has a tiny little screen.
Very.
And it sometimes works okay. In fact, for the majority of this gameplay, I would even say it works pretty well. The normal running around on levels and shooting enemies with your backgrounds, I thought for the most part looked pretty good. It was clear what you were doing. Your backgrounds were, you know, maybe not like the prettiest thing you've ever seen, but obvious what they were going for. But there were moments, like when you get to those splash screens at the ends of your level, and there's a bunch of text, and then there's like graphics that are supposed to be like the cool like moment of awesome graphics where they look awful.
You couldn't even tell what it was.
Oh, come on. Look, that splash screen, I get what you're saying, but it's fun. It was always her like flying away from an explosion in the background, I think is what the vibe is you're getting.
Maybe I couldn't.
I thought she was posing with her gun.
Look, I was gonna say this about graphics. We haven't had the best Game Boy Color games on the podcast. We've had a couple standouts. One of my main complaints has been about the visual aspect of these games, and I kind of alluded to it at the beginning of this episode.
Sure.
But I feel in a lot of ways you just throw colors on the Game Boy games and it shows the imperfections that are there.
Okay.
So this one immediately caught my attention because I'll just go ahead and say it and then maybe elucidate. This is probably the best looking Game Boy Color game that we played.
That may be true.
The colors are diverse and rich. The sprites are not incredibly detailed, but better than anything I've seen on the Game Boy Color this far. And then the backgrounds, the animations, but the backgrounds are the things that, like the stage designs on a visual level and the variety of them are remarkable. There's even times in this handheld game where you've got a foreground, so like you've got like, I don't know, windows in front of you,
or grass,
as you move
like you're running
behind,
through
or grass. You've got, torches in the backgrounds, and you've got a variety of enemies that are around you. Like, for being such a small screen, which Kenny said and is very true, and for being so limited on what they're able to do, I was super, super impressed by the artwork and the art direction of this video game.
It looks insane. It blew me away. I think that, yeah, probably Samurai Kid looked pretty good too, but this is kind of on another level. When I was talking about there being like, what, 15 stages, 15 stages?
Even more, yeah.
Maybe more. Like, each one looked amazing and different and had its own thing going on. Like, if you didn't get far in the game, go look at what's later in the game and you'll be like, holy moly. It's really good. And the animations is what was so noticeable for me. Like, on the Game Boy Color, swinging, running, like the animations were top tier. And I don't know how much better it gets than this on that console.
I'll tell you, Samurai Kid, you're right. I just pulled it up.
It looks better.
It looks so much better.
That game looks great too.
It's a totally different art style.
It's a different art style. This one, like, is super sprite pixel. It's like pixel art to the max.
But they're going for realism at the same time. So
at the same time, and pulling it off.
Yeah.
And so, like, this totally could be good inspiration for modern indie people that looking to make a retro looking game. It kind of fits that category. It looks great.
Musically, I also thought that it performed really well. I don't recall any of the songs, but I thought that they were all good for what it was aiming for, and a variety of tracks as well.
Agreed. I do think some of these tunes are like throughout the series.
Like returning.
I could be wrong, but I heard them and I was like, oh, that's familiar.
No, that's great.
And if so, that's quality. But yeah, listenable music for sure.
Do you recall what we each gave the original game?
I don't, actually. It's been so long.
I'm going to be so mad at myself if I said no, but I'm pretty sure I would have loved it. Like, this was a great game.
I'm pretty sure I said yes.
If our Retro Master list is correct, we all said yes.
Yeah.
That tracks.
That sounds right.
If I'm correct, because we all listened to it again this week, I probably was the loudest dissenting voice of the time, just because, like, my favorite thing in a platformer is when I get that double jump. And not even having a single jump is problematic.
You've got one.
So I believe it got New Game Plus status, and I believe that we all gave it unanimously across the board. That was, 7 years ago or whatever. There have been, and that's the only Bionic Commando game that we played in the series. However, there are other Bionic Commando games in the series. In fact, they rearmed is what it's called, which is great.
Which is so
it's
great.
It's a pun, Kenny.
I'll take it.
It is, and it also answers the question of, as well as the fact that it says Commando, Bionic in the name rather, and that I was looking at the art, the cover art while we were talking about everything else. They chopped the arms off. So I just had to circle back and yeah.
But they have rearmed the series. They did it a while back. In fact, it's retro. We can play the first one.
Oh, really?
I believe,
it's that
because it was
old?
in 2008. The second one was 2011, so not yet. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, we can play 2008. And then I think it was the arcade Bionic Commando, it was the NES Bionic Commando, the one that we played. It was the Game Boy Bionic Commando. So that was the first 3. And then it was Elite Forces, which we just played. And I think that's as far as the series went.
Oh,
I
thought it
and then they
kept going.
remastered the originals. Or I guess both of them.
I would have
I kind
loved.
of wish they'd done new unique games.
Right.
In
I would have
style.
loved to see the 3D transition there for this series, because it would have been crazy. Might have been bad.
One of the things we didn't talk about, and probably is not a bad time to talk about it in Aged, is and I don't know how much we want to talk about it, but in the original Japanese version of this, the whole setup is that you're going against a imagined conclusion of World War II, where the Nazis are not all wiped out, and you're going to have to fight. So we talked about it, I believe, in the episode Bionic Commando, but your final boss there is Hitler.
Is it really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I don't remember that.
Not in the version that we played.
Got it. The
Yeah.
Japanese original, you fight Hitler.
They reskin it. They reskinned it all, and kind
Wow.
of moved away from that story, at least for our audience.
Yeah.
But so in the original, you fight against Master D, which is not near as interesting.
Not Master
but,
H.
No, that's not as scary.
So I wonder if, and I don't know exactly if the same carried on through Elite Forces.
Right.
But it would.
Oh, where the story is something that actually happened, like the aliens attacked Earth and we fended them off with.
Well,
So
also
do you think
this.
I think that this was real life, Kitty?
I mean, that's what you just
Well,
said.
also
Of
this
course
game
not.
didn't come out in Japan
Oh.
Europe.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's true.
Or
This one
Europe.
was U.S. and Australia only.
Oh, interesting.
They did get it on like Virtual Console later.
Sure. Okay.
But-
Then
Sure.
they
Yeah.
probably this one probably never had to
Right.
reskin for
Right.
for a different audience.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to go back and see that was
Yeah.
the origins of this story. If you want a copy of Bionic Commando Elite Forces for your Game Boy Color, it's $23 used or loose. It is $86 if you want it new.
Oof, that's too high for me.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. Nolan, what did you think about BCEF?
Yes.
You liked it?
Yes. It's really, really, really good. Okay, Game Boy Color is not great, but I enjoyed my time with it as a kid. But when I go back and play some of these games, it's very apparent what was good and what was just like thrown out there. And we, kids played it because that's what you played. I didn't play this growing up, but I was blown away by the look of this game, by the mechanics in the game, by the variety of stages, everything we've talked about. I mean, I genuinely struggled to find a complaint about the game. If I had to choose one, it would be maybe I would have enjoyed a little more perilous platforming, swinging, and designs there, but they even gave us some of that. And like, it doesn't always have to be like super challenging. And maybe I wanted more cool boss designs. But man, I really, really, really enjoyed this game. Played the whole thing this week. It's long for a Game Boy Color game, which is a good thing, I think, especially if you're having fun while playing it, which this one I was. It's fantastic. It's a must play on the Game Boy Color. Like, if you're looking for a Game Boy Color game, it's a must play for sure. New Game Plus.
No.
You're insane.
Hold on.
I won't.
No, I don't think this is a must play for the Game Boy Color. But yes, I'm going to give it my vote for New Game Plus status because and Switch.
Swap.
I was surprised this week because I didn't have because of its gimmick, and it is a gimmick, let's be clear. Because of its gimmick, I remembered Bionic Commando. Like, there's not many games like that. I can't think of any games like that. But I also didn't have the best taste in my mouth about Bionic Commando in recollection. I'd have to go back and listen to the episode, which I did, to see fully what I said. I would imagine that I kind of just barely gave it for the novelty or whatever. So I didn't have the best memories and thoughts coming into this game. But relatively early, I was shocked at how good it looked, at how mechanically sound it was. If you're going to take away my jump, then the other mechanics you give me needs to work. And it was tight handling in this. Like, honestly, there was never one time where I felt like it was the game's fault for something happening. It was me not, getting off my my hand quick enough, or it was not, it was just me not being able to manage and control my character and the mechanic as well. It wasn't the game's fault. I do think that the platforming design, the stages, how I mentioned earlier, somewhat limits what the world building, which is not what I'm trying to go for, but I've already kind of made my point clear there of like, I just think that a lot of it is up to the right, down to the right, up to the right, and I do think some of the bosses are rinse and repeat. However, the look, the mechanically sound nature of the game, the advancements from the original where you've got some more decoders or got some more items, or your gun can be powered up, or different things like that. This would be a great game to have on a Game Boy Color back in the day, man. And Nolan, you mentioned it, but the length, like, this is probably like a 4 to 6 hour experience, probably, like, on your first go. There's a lot of game here. Save feature to make it easy and to come back to would be a perfect game for a handheld console. I still don't know if it's like a must play on the system, but it's certainly a good play on the system, and I too give it my vote for New Game Plus status.
Yeah, y'all have pretty much said it all. New Game Plus for me as well. Like, hey, chop my arm off. Like, I'm all in.
Chop both arms off?
No, just one.
Okay.
I will say, as much as some of the things they added which were nice, that were new, were pleasant. The
Snipe?
The trucks and the sniping and a few other things that felt new, felt a little icing. I wish they'd innovated a little bit more on, like, gameplay itself. It still feels a little bit dated. And I know it's a Game Boy Color game and it's a rehash of something that is very NES, but it has that NES vibe. I wish they would have pushed themselves a little with where the series was going. I don't even know how. There's just like a vibe there that I wish they had tried something new or explored new options with the arm and the whole thing. That said, like, that's a nothing complaint. It's a well done game. And I think we're all on exactly the same page. Wow. We're in the same spot. Go play this game.
Which means Bionic Commando Elite Forces is New Game Plus certified. I guess we're Bionic Commando boys because the whole series we have get so far. But what did you think? On YouTube, 21% said yes, it's worth playing today. Listen to this. This has got to be a record because you can't really do much more than this. 1% said no, go play something else, and 78% have never played it before.
1% said no.
Right, the 78 doesn't shock me.
Game Boy Color.
It's that 1%. There's a few people that are like, I know of this game and no.
Well, I think maybe they see Game Boy Color and they're like, no, skip that console completely. I do think some people think that.
I think they say there's no double jump, so
yeah, they're wanting to
single jump.
We had many that played along with us from our community this week and sent in their thoughts on Bionic Commando Elite Forces. Shane said, if I had a nickel for every time there was a GBC puzzle platformer on the podcast that I thought was a hidden gem, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Re-listening to the episode on the original, I feel you could have been talking about the same game for most part, so could understand if this doesn't hit y'all as well. But wow, this game's concept just feels so novel and unique. Figuring out how to navigate with your limited tools is such a rewarding experience and really brings to mind the old adage, restrictions breed creativity. Just an overall great game. I'm glad this podcast got me to play.
Maybe that just goes to show how well this gimmick, because it is, works. That we didn't get sick of it a second time through, because I had forgotten that most of the games similar or the same, but it's fine, I guess.
I'm kind of glad that I had legacy experience because it allowed me to get back into it a little bit quicker than I would have otherwise.
Yep. Yeah, same.
Jukinator said, gameplay is pretty straightforward. Grappling hook feels good when you get into the swing of it.
Hey.
Animations of the player are very fluid for a GBC title. Normal levels don't seem very difficult except for when trying to dodge bullets against certain bosses. Biggest gripe is the top-down shooting levels have busted enemy spawning mechanics. I like the G.I. Joe vibe, probably not an NGP, but I would buy it for my collection.
What?
No.
I don't understand collections where you don't like the game.
What? Some people just want to round out their whole, like,
I know.
the whole catalog.
I get it, but I don't know. This game is really, really good. Like, it's actually playable is the thing.
He's offended by the fact that they said no NGP.
Yeah, I am.
Hey, no one said must play. I said not must play, but play it. Kenny, do you think it's a must play on the GBC?
I mean, if you're being forced to play a game on the Game Boy Color, it might as well be this one. So
yeah,
sure.
What's a must play on the Game Boy Color if not this one?
Wait, why did you make it like someone's forcing you?
Well, sure. Game Boy Color is not my console of choice.
Okay, gotcha. Turtle said the GBC is a very slept-on console nowadays, in large part thanks to it not receiving any really notable original titles. All the best games are either ports or sequels. This has led to the console having an unfounded weak reputation in certain retro gaming communities. That's ours.
Well, luckily, I found it, apparently.
Luckily, we have Bionic Commando Elite Forces to show them wrong. This game has great graphics, controls that are incredibly tight, and a lot of engaging platforming, especially later on. Even the basic level exploration is fun, with you often having to think out of the box and use the claw in a novel way. Overall, great game, NGP for me.
It is still a sequel, though. Like, it proves it wrong, and that's a good game. But, yeah, man, the catalog on the system is kind of weird. It's just, there's not a lot of originals.
Which we've seen, handheld is not a bad place to do, like, side content.
No,
like,
great place for
it. No, it's a natural place to do that.
Yeah, so...
It just either works or it super doesn't.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then finally, Super Gamer Guy said Elite Forces is unexpectedly a worthy sequel to Bionic Commando on the NES. Having just finished that game, I can confidently say that this game is better in almost every way.
I'm not surprised.
Shockingly tight controls,
Agreed.
Less punishing platforming, and smooth animation quality make up for solid improvement on the original formula. Although you have to deal with some mediocre boss design and a somewhat garish color palette, this title might be worth a shot after all.
Yeah. That's interesting to hear a perspective from someone who just played the first one and then went straight to this one and saying that. Yeah. That's crazy,
I'm pretty
man.
sure I saw Super Gamer Guy's review and he gave it Bionic Commando 3.5 stars, so still relatively good, which I would imagine then he would give this one 4 or greater, which is remarkable.
Very nice.
For now, we're going to set aside Bionic Commando Elite Forces, and we are not going to randomly select from our great retro master list.
Because it's summertime.
Because it's time for a Patreon poll. Discord has deemed this summer pool party the summer of weird.
Yeah, why, guys?
Because it has, I mean... It's not their fault. They deemed it that after the selection that we've been receiving.
Well, it's they have the power. They can do whatever. They can deem it that. That's fine.
But our summer pool party is also the games in between, and so far we have Light Crusader, Mary Kate and Ashley, Sweet 16, Killer 7, and Bionic Commando Elite Forces.
Well, this game is an exception, big time.
It's weird,
but it's weird.
It's still weird.
Crusader
You don't jump.
Was so weird.
Like it's not summer of bad, it's summer of
right.
weird. So it
That's
can be good
true.
and weird.
That's true. Weird's not always bad.
Stats by Shane. We've got PC is reigning supreme here. Yeah.
Sweet.
Okay.
Sweet.
Closely following
PS2.
the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2.
Okay.
No surprise.
Yeah, this is kind of the same each time. And
GameCube.
The SNES is training a little bit behind.
I think that's a little different than last time. It makes sense because it's the same people trying to get the same games, presumably.
Sure. The most voted on, which is still not much, only 7 votes, to Kirby's Dream Course.
Kirby's Dream Course. 7's fine. That's
interesting.
Better than 1.
We've got 6 for Azure Dreams, still that RPG that people are wanting us to play.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if we're thinking weird, we've got a few weird entries here, and I'm assuming they're trying to keep with the theme of the summer. We've got E.T. Interplanetary Mission from Scotty.
You're telling me they made another E.T. game?
We've got Shrek Swamp Kart Speedway from Keiko-san.
Yes.
Okay. I'll play anything Shrek.
Me too.
And then we've got Rhythm Heaven from Fun Hippie. It's a DS rhythm game.
That sounds very familiar.
Ooh.
And probably
weird,
good.
but I'm intrigued. Oh, yep. I said weird.
You did say weird. Which is probably the a word for the game that is going to be selected from our much smaller pool as we continue our summer pool party. Will it be the summer of weird? Randomizing now. We're staying in the relative genre with a platformer.
Fine. Acceptable.
This one, I would assume you're able to jump in, so that's
maybe.
Nice.
What about double jump?
Probably not that. It's an action platformer published by Taito and developed and published by Taito and released for the NES.
Okay, this is all great news so far.
It was released in Japan in 1990, North America in 91, and Europe in 92.
Okay.
This is great.
It spawned a sequel. So that's
good sign.
Good sign.
Yep. The game features gameplay similar to the Mega Man series, in which players can select any of the 6 levels to play.
I like that. It's cool.
Okay.
And unfortunately, you're not armed with a claw arm or a gun. You are armed with a boomerang.
Okay.
The game that we'll be playing for the next 7 days was submitted by 2 individuals, Yippee NL and KL31. The game that we're playing for the next 7 days is Power Blade.
Wow. No clue. Power Blade, but it's a boomerang. Okay.
It's probably like a boomerang that is a special alien technology weapon called the Power Blade.
Oh, this looks it's got like a hunky dude.
There are aliens. It looks like that.
Oh, absolutely, it's aliens. It's Terminator.
The front looks like Terminator for sure.
Okay, gameplay looks cool.
Okay.
Okay, I'm actually down for this. Taito's usually good, right?
You know what it seems like to me?
What?
It seems weird.
It does seem
Find
weird.
a copy of Power Blade and play it along with us for the next 7 days.
Hey, the summer pool party is a great time to join our Discord server because everybody's talking about weird games. They're talking about what they're going to team up on and submitting to the Patreon pools. And we're talking about Elden Ring a lot right now. But you can join Discord right now by going to discord.gg/newgameplus.
Weird or not, we'd love for you to join us on Patreon as well and support your favorite retro gaming podcast. Or your second favorite retro gaming podcast. Wherever we rank on your list, we'd love your support. So we want to say a shout out to those of you who are already voting with your wallet, including our producer level supporters. Alex, Alias X, Marley, Antonin, Arlen, Yuki, Ben, Craig, Dustin, 5 o'clock, Shadow, Garlisle, Hallex, Harold, Hey Brother, J. Robert, Jake, Jordan, Joey, Justified, Justin, Kim, Clint, rather.
Kim?
Sorry, Clint.
Thanks, Kim.
Can't read. Levi, Maxima, Megatroid, Miss Muso, Not Enough Dog, Sagen, Shane, Shauna, Snake Maddox, Stephen Fox, Psycho Mantis, Thomas Turtle, Unbelievable, and Zion. A huge thank you to our director level supporters. We would cut off an arm for y'all in a heartbeat. Bro Jim, Super Hypered, Siegfried, and Scotty. Thanks so much. And to our newest patrons, Bender Gin Guitar.
Nice.
I'm sure I said that correctly. Thank you for your support. And to a number of people who upped their support to producer status, who have been supporting already but joined for all of the fun of the summer, including some activities happening at the end of the summer that I don't know if we've talked about, but y'all can assume are happening. Tins, the Kentucky Kid, Marcus, and Sasser. Thank you guys all for leaning in a little bit.
Enjoy those unedited episodes.
Dankeschön, meine gute Freunds. You can find us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. All of those links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice, and make sure you subscribe so that you're the first to get new NGP episodes. While you're at it, leave a kind rating and review. Our episode artwork was created by Dave. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Power Blade. Until then, I'm still unarmed.
I'm still weird and good with it.
The female character.
And this has been New Game Plus.